Longtime Bay Area figure skating coach Phillip DiGuglielmo still remembers the FaceTime call that caught him completely off guard. His former student, Alysa Liu, wanted to talk, and what she said next made his stomach drop. She wanted to come back. 2 years after walking away from the sport, the girl who had already rewritten the record books was asking to lace up her skates again. DiGuglielmo didn't celebrate. He pushed back. He told her he was scared for her. When you've reached that level and you step away, coming back and doing something even greater than what you already did, that's an enormous ask. Most athletes who try it fail, not because they lose talent, but because the sport moves on without them, and the hunger that once drove them is almost impossible to relight. But Liu wasn't asking for permission. She was asking for help. And that one small difference told DiGuglielmo everything he needed to know about where her head was. Alysa Liu grew up in Oakland, California. From the time she was a little girl, she had an unusual relationship with the ice. Not unusual in the sense that she was obsessive or single-minded, but unusual in the sense that skating always seemed to come naturally to her in a way that coaching couldn't fully explain. She absorbed technique faster than her peers. She landed jumps that athletes years older than her were still struggling to master. And she did it without the kind of visible strain that usually signals how hard something really is. By the time she was a teenager, she had already made history. She became the youngest woman to land a triple axel in international competition. And then she went further, becoming the first woman to combine a quadruple jump with a triple axel in competition. These weren't just milestones in her career. They were milestones for the sport. The skating world had never seen anyone quite like her, and she was still in middle school when she started turning heads at the highest level. But then, in 2022, she walked away. She was 18 years old, and she was done. At least, that's what she said. She wanted to live a normal life. She wanted to experience things that elite athletes in their teenage years rarely get to experience. Time with friends, freedom from schedules, a break from the pressure of being one of the best in the world at something. And honestly, nobody could blame her for that. The skating community respected the decision, even if it stung a little. Here was a once-in-a-generation talent choosing to step away at what many believed was the beginning of her prime. Coaches, fans, former competitors, they all watched and wondered what might have been. A full Olympic cycle was coming. The 2026 Milan Winter Games were on the horizon, and Alysa Liu would not be part of it. Or so everyone thought. Somewhere in those 2 years off the ice, something shifted. She had time to think, time to breathe, time to exist outside of competition for the first time in her life. And somewhere in all of that quiet, she realized that skating wasn't something she had done. It was something she was. The sport wasn't a chapter she had closed. It was a language she still needed to speak. So she picked up the phone and called DiGuglielmo. He had coached her for years. He knew her technically better than almost anyone. He knew what her body could do, what her mind was capable of, and exactly how high the bar was that she was proposing to clear again. That's why his heart sank. Not because he didn't believe in her, but because he understood the full weight of what she was suggesting. He had seen comeback stories before. Most of them didn't end the way athletes imagined they would. He tried to talk her out of it. He laid out the risks honestly. The sport didn't slow down while she was gone. Younger skaters had been training full-time during those 2 years. The scoring system rewards consistency built over seasons, not months. And the Olympic year was approaching fast, which meant there would be almost no margin for error in her preparation timeline. She listened to all of it, and then she told him she still wanted to try. Something in that conversation convinced him. Maybe it was the fact that she wasn't being naive. She wasn't showing up starry-eyed and nostalgic, talking about how much she missed the sport. She was clear-eyed and serious. She had thought it through. She wasn't asking him if she could make it back. She was asking him to help her figure out how. He said yes. The team they assembled was tight and intentional. DiGuglielmo handled the technical coaching, rebuilding her competitive readiness from the ground up while preserving everything that had always made her special. Choreographer Massimo Scali came in to shape her programs, working with her not just on movement, but on meaning, helping her figure out what she actually wanted to say on the ice now that she was a different person than the teenager who had first made her name. And that difference turned out to be the whole story, because the Alysa Liu who came back in 2024 was not the same athlete who had left in 2022. Technically, she was as sharp as ever. The jumps were still there. The spins were still clean. The body still moved with that effortless quality that coaches spend years trying to teach and rarely succeed. But something deeper had changed. She had changed. Before retirement, she had been, by her coach's own description, a model athlete. She did what she was told. She worked hard. She succeeded. But she was executing someone else's vision of what figure skating should look like. She was performing within the lines that coaches and judges had drawn for her, and she was doing it brilliantly. But it wasn't fully her. The Alysa who came back had ownership. That's the word DiGuglielmo kept coming back to. Ownership. She wasn't there to execute a plan anymore. She was there to express something. She skated like she had something to say and was no longer waiting for someone to give her permission to say it. That shift, invisible to most audiences but obvious to anyone who had watched her for years, turned out to be exactly what separated her from the competition in Milan. The 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan, Italy, were watched by millions of people around the world. Figure skating, as always, drew enormous viewership. The women's singles event featured some of the most technically accomplished skaters in the history of the sport. The pressure was unlike anything most athletes ever face. One program, one chance, years of preparation condensed into 4.5 minutes on a sheet of ice. Alysa Liu skated out wearing a gold sequin dress that looked like it had been made for a 1970s discotheque. The music that filled the arena was Donna Summer's MacArthur Park, a sweeping, dramatic, unmistakably bold choice that told the audience exactly what kind of performance they were about to witness. This was not going to be safe. This was not going to be cautious. This was going to be something else entirely. And it was. From the first moment she started moving, something happened in that arena. 13,000 people who had been watching skating all week, people who had seen technically perfect performances one after another, felt something different. She wasn't just skating. She was pulling the room into her world. The triple combinations were threaded directly into the music, each one landing at exactly the right moment. The spins were precise. The step sequences moved with a musicality that made the technical requirements feel like creative choices rather than obligations. And then, near the end of the program, she reached back and grabbed her own foot, pulling her leg up above her head as the sequins caught the arena lights, and the whole rink seemed to shimmer gold. The crowd was already gone at that point, already hers. When she finished, right arm raised, one finger pointing straight to the sky, the building erupted. Nobody was waiting for the scores. They already knew. Alysa Liu became the first American woman to win Olympic gold in figure skating in 24 years. She was 20 years old. She had come back from retirement in roughly 18 months. She had done what her coach privately feared might be impossible. And she had done it in a way that felt not just like a victory, but like a statement. DiGuglielmo watched from the sidelines as his athlete stood on top of the podium. He thought about that FaceTime call. He thought about everything he had said to try to talk her out of it. He thought about the look on her face when she told him she still wanted to try anyway. He was glad he said yes. In the weeks that followed Milan, Liu's life changed in ways that she was still getting used to. She was recognized on the street now, everywhere she went. Requests were coming in from every direction. Interviews, appearances, partnerships, opportunities she had never imagined when she first reached out to her coach about returning. Figure skating was having a cultural moment, and she was the center of it. DiGuglielmo watched all of this with a mixture of pride and quiet concern. Not because he doubted her ability to handle it, but because he knew from experience that the transition from athlete to public figure is its own kind of challenge, and it has nothing to do with jumping ability or musicality or competitive drive. It requires a completely different set of skills, and those skills take time to develop. She was learning. That much was clear. The same way she had always learned, by taking things seriously, by paying attention, by refusing to pretend that difficult things were easy. The city of Oakland, where she spent most of her life, was preparing a pep rally in her honor. The Bay Area, which had watched her grow up and train and compete and retire and come back, was ready to celebrate one of its own. And DiGuglielmo, the coach who had once tried to talk her out of all of this, was ready to celebrate too. He said something in his interview with KQED that stuck. He said that what Alysa has is rare. Not just the technical gifts, not just the jump technique, not just the performance ability. What's rare is the combination of all of it together. The work ethic and the artistry and the mental toughness and the genuine joy in sharing what she does with an audience. He said that competition, for most athletes, feels like a test. For Alysa, it feels like an invitation. An invitation to show people something beautiful. An invitation to share her art. An invitation to take everything she has worked for in private and let it live for a few minutes in front of thousands of people who will never forget what they witnessed. That's what happened in Milan. That's what keeps happening every time Alysa Liu steps onto the ice. And if her return from retirement proved anything, it's that some athletes don't just compete. They remind you why the sport exists in the first place.